Hi, I'm R.T. Kendall, and I want to talk to you today about Elijah, the man. I've just written a book. It's out in a few days. It's called These Are the Days of Elijah. The thing that strikes me about Elijah, he was a man just like us. And one of the things that characterizes him, he took himself so seriously. Now, this is a problem that a lot of us have. If I'm honest, it's my problem too. And what encourages me is that Elijah, though he took himself so seriously, God still used him. For example, on Mount Carmel, he says, "I alone am left." This is when he challenged the prophets of Baal and said, get off the fence. Let's decide who is God. Is it Baal or is it the God of Israel? And Elijah made a deal with them. We will call on our God, and the God who answers by fire, that will be the true God. And well, they all agreed to that. And so Elijah said, "I alone am left." You might have thought that God would say, Stop the whole proceedings, Elijah. I can't use you now. Anybody that takes himself that seriously, because when Elijah said, "I alone am left," he was wrong. So wrong. He knew better. Just the day before, Obadiah had come to Elijah and said, "I have hidden 100 prophets in a cave." Elijah knew that he wasn't the only one left. How dare he speak like that? But what happened was he became so full of himself and this mission, confronting the prophets of Baal, he probably thought nobody had the boldness that he had, and he regards himself as the only one left. You see, people like this become insensitive to those around them. They think if they don't have the same profile, or if they've got no profile, or sometimes even if they have more profile, you think you're the one. And people like this need to be dealt with. And God had to deal with Elijah. He's had to deal with me, I can tell you that. But the point is this. Here's a man who was imperfect. God could have stopped the whole thing and said, "I can't use a man like that." But God just let him carry on. And then when Elijah began to pray, the fire fell and everybody shouted, "The Lord, He is God! The Lord, He is God!" All this happened when God used such an ordinary man who had so much of a big ego that he thought he was the only one left. Well, when I say that's encouraging, let me ask you a question. Do you find yourself taking yourself too seriously? That means that you want to make sure you get full recognition, you get the credit for something, you're afraid that you won't get noticed, that you won't get the applause that you deserve, and maybe you are very sensitive to criticism, you take yourself so seriously you can't laugh at yourself. Well, these are things that are not good. And I know that God has had to deal with me, and God did deal with Elijah later on. You see, the moment we make a mistake, and there's no thunder, there's no lightning, we may think, well, looks like I got away with it, or maybe it wasn't so bad after all. The fact that we do something that's wrong, and God doesn't immediately step in, doesn't mean that it wasn't wrong. It just means that God, in His own time, will come around and in the right moment will say, "I'm sorry, I need to deal with you. This has got to stop." Well, He's done that with me. He did it with Elijah. And remember this, here's the main thing. If we are imperfect vessels, God can use us. He used Elijah, the greatest prophet next to Moses in the Old Testament. And if God could use Elijah, He can use me. And if He could use me, He could use anybody.